Hello everyone and happy Monday. I hope that this video finds you all healthy, happy, and safe. So this week, our theme is self-discovery process. This was a huge thing for me. And actually, self-discovery is something that we're going to be doing all through our lives, right? But there's always going to be something that happened, an event in our lives that will force us to go back into it again, to start that process over. And I want to talk today specifically about those of us that have gone through abuse and what the self-discovery process looks like after that. We tend to find ourselves, what I call walking around in the wilderness for some time after we've gone through some trauma in our lives. And this is not just for those of us that have gone through abuse. This is for anyone who has suffered any kind of loss or trauma, right? We find ourselves going through the wilderness. And the only thing to do at that time is to call on God, right? We call on our Creator. We call on whomever we know because that's all we have. And then through that, we can navigate what our next steps should be. But during that time, it can happen two types of ways, I feel, for some people, because not everyone's self-discovery process is going to look the same. It really, like I said, it's going to depend on the event that has happened in your life that has brought you to this point. Because that loss can be everything from divorce to job, relationships, a home, something like that. And you find yourself wondering how you've got here, what to do next. And you're clueless and you're feeling a sense of hopelessness. For abuse and trauma specifically, it can have an adverse effect on our self-identity. And so what I write in my book, Who the Hell Do You Think You Are? And that's, that's the question, right? Who the hell do you think you are? I was only able to write the book because I was able to answer the question. And so that experience for me was a part of my self-discovery process every step of the way. I discovered that I am a lot stronger than I thought I was. I discovered that I am a lot more smarter than I thought I was. I discovered that I was a whole lot more valuable to the world than what I thought I was. And the reason why it was a struggle, and why it's usually a struggle for those of us when we have come out of those types of situations, is because we have been hearing another message about ourselves. Someone else has told us who we are. And even though deep down inside we may not believe that, it stays attached to us. And that becomes our walking identity. But I knew that if I was going to come out of this situation on the other side, if I was going to come out of this, there was some work that I was going to have to do. So it started with just being able to sit with myself. Just being able to sit with myself. Not around other people, not to get anyone else's opinions, suggestions, but to sit with myself and God. Sit with my thoughts. sit with my pain, sit with all the questions, all the whys. And I don't know if any of you heard of that book, Conversations with God. Well, he had nothing on me. I had so many conversations with God, literally walking around in my apartment, talking to God about what I was feeling at that time. And it was through those conversations that I started to hear little whispers, and I got these feelings within me that reaffirmed for me who I was as a child of God. But one of the big parts of that I tell a lot of women, when you have to be able to face yourself in the self-discovery process, you have to be able to ask yourself some tough questions. These are self-examining questions. These are questions that it's not so much reflective questions as it is introspective. So really asking yourself questions like, who am I? Now, some things are going to jump off the top of your head. And whenever I ask that question, I would always go to the top ones. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, all of those things. Outside of my identity with other people, I didn't know who I was. And after I would go through that, then I would go back into all of the things that were told to me that made me feel lesser than. And I'd start to believe them. So asking that question and just sitting with it, and even if you have to jot those things down, jot them down, but just know that's just what's coming out of your head because that's what's been told to you at that time. As you continue to ask that question, you will hear who you truly are on the inside. That will start to come up for you. So start with that. Then start to self-examine your values. What are your values? This is a big question that we really don't talk about and no one asks. When we're in relationship with people, that is like one of the most important things we want to ask someone is, what are your values? What is important to you? And so at that point, ask yourself that, because that is another telling information for you in who you are as a person, your values. Then ask yourself, what is your purpose? Now, you may not know right now what your purpose is, but in asking yourself that, things will pop up. Jot it down. Write it all down. Okay? And then finally, and this was a tough one. What brought me here? What brought me to this place that I am in right now? Now that, really, to be honest with you, is a bit of a self-reflecting, but it's also self-examining, because it was that question that started to help me connect the dots in my values. What was important to me played a role in the decisions that I made, in the choices that I made. And so as I started to look back over my life, pre-marriage, relationship, prior relationships, those types of things, I could see the trend line. Hard. And so me taking responsibility at this point, that point in my life, for decisions and the choices that I made, right? Not so much for what happened to me, but the decisions and the choices that I made that brought me to this point. And that part of the self-discovering process, it's difficult because we have to face ourselves in a way we don't want to. It is so much easier for us at that particular time to be in victimhood, to feel pity for ourselves, to let the overall trauma and feelings from the trauma overtake our lives, therefore overtaking our thoughts, and then from that overtaking our behaviors. So that is the cycle that I don't want you to get into. So that's why doing the work at a time when you really don't feel like it, when you really don't feel like you have all the answers, is the time to do it. Because you are a lot stronger than you realize you are. So facing yourself at that moment is going to be a key thing for you. Now, when we want to get on the other side of things. We know that we want to get past this, and we know that we want more for our lives, and we want to do something with our lives, and we want to take this particular experience or what has happened so far in our life's journey, and we want to do something with it. But we cannot do that, right? We cannot do that. We can't serve the world. We can't serve others. We can't help others until we can dig deep and do that piece of work. When I was doing my retreats, my New Beginnings retreats, we also worked through what I call the Phoenix process. And the Phoenix process was something that I developed because as I took on the surname Phoenix, we all know what that the phoenix rising from the ashes means to us, right? And that was what my life felt like. And that is really what your life is like. And you too are a phoenix. And I wanted to take the women through that Phoenix process. And the self-discovery process was the very first step in doing that. The next step in that was the self-reflecting process, and that's what I was telling you about. And that's really about when we look more closely at our belief systems, right? What are we believing? What have we been believing? What are we holding on to, using as a crutch? Right? Because now we've gone through the self-discovery process. We know we are more. We know we are conquerors and we're warriors. And we know that we have lived through that experience for such a time as this to make a difference in the world. But we don't want some old belief patterns and things that are sort of stuck in our brains. It's especially when we've gone through trauma, there's a tendency for us to automatically turn to the thing that has been, it hasn't been serving us, but in a way it's a comfort for us, right? That's the comfort thing we turn to. It's almost like when someone drinks alcohol and they know that that's not the answer, but that's just, they want it anyway because it's just going to help mask it. So it's that type of behavior and that relationship that we have with these beliefs, these negative, these toxic beliefs that have been carried over. And in doing that, we can then examine what is the motivation behind the things that we're doing, right? So in our hearts could be telling us one thing, right? Our heart is telling us one thing. Our core, our inner sides is telling us one thing, but then our head up here, because of what we've experienced, is still controlling things. It's still also triggering something within our bodies that cause us to feel certain things that we know why it's doing it, but it's not really, it's an old pattern, right? Like it took me quite a while, years, before I realized that when my body was feeling the anxiety and the fear, even when there was nothing there, it was like it was still holding on to something, trying to keep me safe. And so that's part of the body trauma as well. But that self-reflecting process is really for us to look at those beliefs, that belief system that we have. And then we get to self-mastery. And the self-mastery is really what we have been talking about in the past couple of weeks, when we talked about finding and activating your voice and owning your power. That is, now you feel strong in who you are. You know better who you are and what you're capable of and your potential. And you can now reach in to this treasure chest of all of these gifts. And you can now take that story and use it as a platform or as a guiding system or as a tool in some way where you can not only make your life so much more expansive and beautiful and purposeful, but you can also pour into the lives of others as well. And that was the process that started to happen for me. If I never started at the beginning and did that work and dug deep, I couldn't be here and be talking to you like this. I couldn't be doing the work that I am doing. I would have no credibility. So I don't know where you are in that stage. If you're at the self-discovery process right now and you're sort of stuck there, if you're at the self-reflecting point right now and you're sort of stuck there too, or if you're at self-mastery, but yet still you're not sure how you want to push forward and you still have questions about, how to activate your voice, how to own your power, how to use your message in such a way that it's going to make a difference. So wherever you are, I want you to comment below and let me know, are you at self-discovery? Are you at self-reflecting? Or in self-mastery? And let's continue to talk about that and talk about how I can help you with that and how, we can, as a community, help each other get to that self-mastery and beyond so that we can do the work we want to do and change the world. Wednesday, we're going to talk a little bit more about the self-reflecting part and our belief systems and how that has limited us, how that has held us back and kept us in a box, and ways that we can move beyond that. And then Friday, we'll have our special guest speaker, and we're going to talk a little bit more about once you go through that self-discovery process, what that looks like for you and our special guest, and she'll share her experience with us as well. So I hope this has been beneficial for you. And again, comment below, let us know which stage that you're in, and let's keep the discussion going, okay? So until then, let's go out and change the world. This is Marjorie Phoenix, and I'll see you again on Wednesday. Bye-bye.